Hey, it's Kyle here, and it is time for a Christmas book haul, which is basically became a yearly tradition on this channel. As implies, I basically just go over the books I got this year for Christmas. So first up, I start out because I don't want to itch my. Hey, it's Kyle here, and it's time for a Christmas book haul. And as the name implies, I'm just going over the books I got this year for Christmas, which has really became a yearly tradition on this channel. I've done this several years now. So let's just get started. So first up is a book by Harry Turtledove. It is Last Orders. It is a book in the War That Came Early series. And basically this series explores the alternate history of what would happen if Hitler had started World War II a year or two earlier than it did in our timeline, which dramatically impacts of how the war unfolds. And as always, what Turtledove does so excellently in these books, not only does it explore the historical aspects of the storyline, but he does an awesome job of developing characters, like common soldiers, civilians, that you really come to care tremendously about. So I'm really looking forward to reading this book in the series. I believe this is the last book in the series, so it's been a great series, and I'm really interested in reading The Last Orders by Harry Turtledove. Next up is Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson. I heard about this book through a podcast, the Tested podcast, which I've listened to every once in a while. And when I was listening to that, they spent one podcast talking about this book and how interesting it was and all the elements of it they really enjoyed. And it sounded really interesting, so I kind of made a note of the title and I looked it up a little bit later, and it did sound really interesting. So I decided to put it in my Christmas list, and my mom got it for me this year. So I'm going to read the back cover to kind of explain the basics of it, not the entire, but a little bit just to set up what this book is all about. A catastrophic event renders the Earth a ticking time bomb. In a feverish race against the inevitable, nations around the globe band together to devise an ambitious plan to ensure the survival of humanity far beyond our atmosphere in outer space. By complexities and unpredictability of human nature, coupled with unforeseen challenges and dangers, threaten the pioneers until only a handful of survivors remain. 5,000 years later, their progeny, 7 distinct races now 3 billion strong, embark on yet another audacious journey into the unknown, to an alien world utterly transformed by cataclysm and time. Earth. I'm very interested in this book. I know the way it's explained via the podcast that the book basically explores several thousand years of history and how this new society evolves. Really looking forward to it. It sounded very interesting. So, Seven Eves. Next up is If Then by Matthew Abatua. Sorry, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his last name badly. Its last part's Abaitua. I actually got this book for myself. My granddad actually gives, instead of basically buying me something, he's always given all the grandkids basically some money and has them go buy their own Christmas presents. So I went to the bookstore and got a couple books, and this book caught my eye on the shelf, and I got it. Never really had heard of it before. It wasn't familiar with the author, but the premise on the back of the book sounded very interesting. So I'll read it to you. In the near future, after the collapse of society as we know it, one English town survives under the protection of the complex algorithms of the process, which governs every aspect of their lives. The process both gives and takes. It allocates jobs and resources, giving each person exactly what it has calculated that they will need. The process also decides who stays under its protection and who must be banished to the wilderness beyond. Human life has become totally ruled by algorithms, and James, the town bailiff, is charged with making sure the process orders are implemented. But now it seems it started making soldiers terrifyingly. The process is readying for war. So that sounded kind of interesting. So I always kind of like dystopian novels. So this was one that kind of sounded interesting. So I'll check it out. So If Then. Next up is John Scalzi's Old Man's War. I'm a huge fan of John Scalzi. I've read a few of his books. The ones I've read so far have been his standalone books. But I've heard about this series from the very beginning, and it's always sounded very interesting. So I finally decided to kind of delve in and start the series, which this is the first book in it. And I'm going to read a little bit of it, the back cover, just kind of give you an overview of it. John Perry did two things on his 75th birthday. First, he visited his wife's grave. Then he joined the army. The good news is that humanity finally made it up to the stars. But the bad news is that out there, planets fit to live in are on scarce, and alien races willing to fight us for them are common. So we fight far from Earth. The war has been going on for decades, brutal, bloody, and unyielding. Earth itself is a backwater. The bulk of our resources are in the hands of the colonial defense forces, and everybody knows that when you reach retirement age, you can join up. The CDF doesn't want young people. They want people who can carry the knowledge and skills of decades of living. You'll be taken off Earth, never to return. You'll serve 2 years in combat, and if you survive, you'll be given a homestead of your own on one of our hard-won planets. John Perry is taking that deal. And as I said, this is a series, so I'm really looking forward to reading this book and seeing how it develops the storyline and stuff. So, John Scalzi, huge fan of his. I'm sure I'll love this book. Next up is some nonfiction books. First up is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. I've always heard a lot about this book. I've heard it's great. My sister's read for it. She really loved it. Heard several great things about the author, several of his books. So, know he has a great reputation. I'm actually familiar with some of the historical events behind this book. So, I've always kind of wanted to read it. And this is another one of the books I got with my granddad's Christmas money. And basically, it's about the World's Fair in Chicago in the late 1800s. At the same time you have that going on, there is a very notorious serial killer basically stalking people in Chicago. So it's kind of an interesting aspect of exploring the World's Fair, but at the same time, this crazy person is killing a ton of people. And it is, as I said, nonfiction. So sometimes true events are even stranger than fiction. So really looking forward to reading Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. Next up is Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates by Brian Kilmeade and Don Yeager. As anybody that watches the channel knows, I'm a huge history buff, love it. Especially early American history is one of my favorite topics. And so this explores kind of an aspect of early American history a lot of people don't really know about, where the U.S. very early on, after gaining independence, begins to fight pirates in North Africa to kind of help secure our trade and stuff. So it's a very interesting topic that doesn't really get explored a whole lot in history, so I'm looking forward to reading this book. And the last book I got, and the last book I actually got with my granddad's Christmas money, is King of the World, Muhammad Ali and the Rise of an American Hero by David Remnick. I'm sure everybody knows who Muhammad Ali is. Very fascinating figure. Extremely important both in cultural aspects and sports aspects. So always been very interested in Muhammad Ali. So I'm really looking forward to reading this book. So those are the books I got this year for Christmas. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know what you got for Christmas book-wise in the comment section below. And then always, if you have any recommendations of books you think I should read, let me know. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. And I'll see you the next time. And hope you had a great Christmas.